Hello, you are listening to Deeply Curious. My name is Cody Jensen, and joining me in our New York City studio apartment is Sarah Jensen, my wife.
Hello.
Today, the day that this comes out, this podcast drops, is March 12th.
Mm-hmm.
And my birthday was yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Why, thank you. But it's not just any birthday.
Yeah.
It is a decade marker birthday.
It's a big one.
If you have only seen me, you're probably assuming that this is my 20th birthday. If you've only heard all of my wisdom, then you're probably assuming this is my 40th birthday.
Right.
But in actuality, split the difference. It's my 30th birthday.
Yeah.
Turning 30.
I know. It's a little weird.
Yeah.
I feel like now, because I'm 29 now, and you're 30 now. And I feel like I'm the same as we're the same as when we were 18, when we got married, you know?
It does tend to feel that way. But then actually reflecting back, I'm like, wow, we are way
I'm also
different.
really glad that I'm not, though.
Yes.
You know what I mean? My early 20s, I dreaded getting to my late 20s and almost 30 and then 30 or whatever. And now that we're here, I'm like, wow, I feel so good about it.
Mm-hmm.
So happy I'm not young 20s anymore.
Yeah, the only thing for me is I feel like I did a lot in my 20s.
Yeah.
And whenever I was 24 and around there, I was starting businesses and I was doing all this stuff. And I would look at other 30-year-olds and I'd be like, they're so behind.
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing? They're 30.
Mm-hmm.
Get your life together. And now I'm 30 and I'm kind of like, I think I'm at the same spot that all those people were.
Well, to be fair, it's the curse of knowledge. It's your own life, right? So you feel like you're maybe a little bored or boring or whatever. Mm-hmm. But also, you have been living in New York for 2 years. You know what I mean? You haven't, just because we haven't started a new business or done any of these crazy ventures that we did when we were in our young 20s. But we did up and move for no apparent reason and, have been doing what we're doing. So it's not like you're behind.
Yeah.
It's just different. That's all.
Yeah. So in this episode, what we decided to do is I'm turning 30. So I just
Old man.
I spent the last hour or so, and I wrote down 30 things that I've learned in my 30 years. Mm-hmm. And it was just a stream of consciousness, just all the things. It's just things that I've learned. I've learned way more than what I wrote down, and we may not even be able to get through everything that I wrote down. But I did write down. Somebody once told me the world was gonna roll me.
I was gonna say some life lesson insights and then some just regular stuff, or are they all pretty deep?
I would say they are all moderately deep.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see what we can do.
But before we jump into that conversation, just want to let you know that this podcast is produced by the members over at the Jensen AV Club. That is our Patreon. And we have a couple new crew members to shout out. We have Alexei Shermatov. If I butchered your name, send me a message and give me a phonetic English pronunciation of your name. But
correct it.
But welcome to the crew. Also, Rodney McDaniel. I'm pretty sure I did not butcher your name. Thank you so much for joining the AV Club as a crew member. A new staff member, we have Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
And then a brand new associate producer, Maddie Lane.
Hey.
Thanks so much, Maddie Lane, for joining the Jensen AV Club. And then, of course, this podcast is produced by Christian B. Schmidt.
Thank you to all.
Yes, and if you don't know what the Jensen AV Club is, the Jensen AV Club is our Patreon page. It is our premium membership club. It gives you deeper access and exclusive content, just more things and more perks. And also, I would say even more than all that, those are bonuses on top of what is actually happening, is that you are supporting us as artists and supporting the art that you love.
And helping craft the podcast as well.
Yes.
In various ways.
Right. And so if you want to be a part of supporting what we are doing and supporting the art that you love, head over to jensenav.club, and you can check out all of the tiers of things that you can, perks that you can have as being a part of the Jensen AV Club. So just a huge thank you to all of the Jensen AV Club members for making our art possible.
Yes. Okay. What have you learned?
Well, what have I learned?
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
I have 1 year to put all of these into practice, so I need you to help me out.
1 year left in your 20s.
1 year.
Also, speaking of, you're actually in your 30th year.
I know.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is. Let's not talk about it.
So number 1 on the list is people are all that matters.
Yes, I feel like we've been talking about this in various forms.
Yeah.
A lot over the last several months as we have been, just missing community and like our friends and stuff.
Yeah, I think that New York, we've always known that. I think that I've been on a journey from 20 to 30, especially, of learning what people actually mean and what relationships mean to me and like how much I value that in my life. And then also the really learning that people make the place.
Totally.
And that is something that I think that's something that I knew, or like, it's like philosophically, I knew like definitely people make the place.
Right. It doesn't matter where you live as long as the people.
Right.
Whatever.
It's like, but also I kind of don't like where I live, so let me just move.
Let's just go,
and we'll try it out.
Yeah.
And then as we like, live in a place, live away from like people who like
and live in a place that, well, I love and have always loved. That I always wanted to come here, and I mean, you love as well. But like living here for long enough, and it seemingly being a city that offers everything,
right?
And then learning that it's not true because like your people aren't here.
Yeah.
You can't really ignore the lesson at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a place that offers absolutely everything means nothing if you don't have what you need. Like if you don't have everything. Like if you, by everything to me would be people, and like, I mean, that would be like one of the main things.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So yeah, I mean, we've had lots of discussions on people mattering. I have a whole show about that, I think. We definitely had a long conversation about people make the place.
Yeah. I learned that the first time I learned that was in Tulsa, when I hated Tulsa for, hate is maybe a strong word, but I hated being in Tulsa for a really long time until I found friends and decided like, oh, Tulsa's not so bad because my friends are here. But I still thought that a city could,
save you.
Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, my friends are here. That's great. But like, let's, jet off to New York, and then that's where we're supposed to be, So I like learned it in the kind of the opposite way now. Yeah. Because like people made Tulsa bearable, and people not having people has made New York difficult, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So number 1, people are all that matters. Number 2, I just wrote mercy.
Have you learned this though?
Well, I would say I've learned / always learning mercy.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be your thing for the rest of your life. Like we all have that one thing that we never actually like learn. It's like a continual learn, a continual, oh crap, I messed up again.
Yeah. So quick story behind this is that previously to living in New York City, I worked in a local church for 8 years as a creative director, and I was, and part of being on staff at a church, hopefully, is that you are also, growing spiritually, growing as a leader,
character,
growing, in your character, all that type of stuff. And so that's what we were doing, and we were on, a journey of certain things, and we took this thing called the spiritual gifts test. And the spiritual gifts test, it's kind of like the Myers-Briggs or something.
It's like a personality test that tells you.
Yeah, it's not really a personality test, but it just, there are certain like spiritual gifts as, laid out by, I don't know, the Bible and whoever.
And like, stuff. Yeah. I mean, like administration is a spiritual. It's not just like.
It's all, anyways, it's all based on scripture, but they come out with all these things that are spiritual giftings, and we take this test of like where we lie in different spiritual giftings. And I think there's 20 things or something. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. The point of the story is
there's several.
There are over a dozen. I think there's probably close to 20, and you score from like a 0 to, I don't know,
100, we'll just
whatever
say.
It is. I mean, it's 0 to 10, 0 to 100. It really doesn't matter, because very, very, very bottom of the list with a score of 0, mercy.
I just want to say, whenever this happened to you, I felt so vindicated. I felt like, finally, there is proof on paper and he can't deny. That's how I felt.
Yeah, and this was around 24, 25, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Which is a pivotal part of, I think, everybody's life.
Mm-hmm.
But especially, I think for me, this was one of the moments in my life that I gained a vital piece of self-awareness.
Totally, yeah.
And whenever it first happened, I was kind of proud of it, and like people on staff, they would call me No Mercy.
Yeah.
And like hashtag No Mercy.
It was a joke,
and it was kind of like a joke,
which it still is. I mean, it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing, and I took it with in stride, like with pride, even, and it's like, yeah, it's like, haha, No Mercy. But then as I continued to process that and continued to grow as a person and started to think about, okay, the reasons there's even these spiritual giftings and the reason that this is even a thing is because these are qualities that we should want.
Right, they're all positive.
And if I, as a Christian, as somebody who is striving to become a person, that looks more like Jesus than doesn't,
right.
Mercy is a vital character trait,
right,
of the person, of Jesus. And so it was basically it took me on a journey from being like, hashtag No Mercy, to I think I need to start praying for mercy, and that I need to start looking and striving and figuring out, what does mercy even mean in my life? How can I treat others with mercy and give others mercy in the same way that I am given mercy through, people and,
right.
God. And so basically for a few years went on a journey of that happening. And the very, very cool and encouraging thing to me is that after moving to New York, the church that we came to here, have had many different meetings with the pastor, and one of the things that the pastor told me in just conversation, he just said, I love just how like empathetic and like how much mercy you have, like in certain, I don't remember the exact words, but he gave this like thing to me of like encouragement to me of like being somebody of mercy and empathy.
Right.
It was very encouraging to know that I had at least began that journey.
Right. Well,
because those, when people around you, people that see you every day, it's hard to be like, they knew me from my past. They knew that I was hashtag No Mercy.
Right.
And then it's like, it would take a really big like thing to happen for them to realize, oh wow, Cody's really changed. But somebody who has never known me in the past, they see me as I am now, and they're like, wow, this person has this quality that I want to encourage in them because it is so good.
Right.
And it's like, that to me was like a sign of growth, a sign of change, and something that I'm, I don't know. I guess just that's why it makes it on the list of like things I've learned.
Totally. I mean, it is true. You have gotten not softer, because you're not soft, but like
I want it. I don't think anybody would classify me as soft, but I think that I am softer.
Yeah, but yes, but it is hard for me to like, recognize that. Me personally.
Yeah. I mean, you've known me since I was a fetus, so.
Yeah. I also think you're just kind of mean to me sometimes, so.
I mean, we've been married for a long time, and there's no point in denying
I'm just saying it's hard for me to say like, oh, yes, you've learned mercy. But I know logically, like looking at, young 20s, late 20s, it's obvious.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Number 3 is wisdom is knowing how much you don't know. Mm-hmm. Is something that I learned probably around the same time. I
feel like when you turn 25, 26, whatever, it's just like a light bulb. You're like, oh my gosh, I know nothing.
Yeah. And
then that makes you so much smarter.
Yeah. I think that probably for all, but I think from my experience, and I think especially for men, in our 18 to 25, we just go through that phase of know it all, like know everything, like whatever it is, like we just like we know it, we know it better than you for sure. And I can also just speak for myself. That's exactly how I was. And I think that, and I didn't know it. I didn't know that that's the way I was acting. I didn't know that I thought I knew everything. Like I wasn't aware of that. It was just that I felt like I knew everything. But it wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm definitely it wasn't like a self-awareness. It was just,
you just were.
I really felt like I knew everything. And everything may be a stretch, but I feel like I knew a lot.
I mean, you definitely approached everything as if you had the solution and nothing else worked.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Unless I heard a better solution, yeah.
Yeah, but even hearing a better solution was almost impossible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you have to be smarter than me to come up with it.
I see, even, yeah.
I'm saying I know how, I'm not defending myself. I know how I was.
I know. I'm just saying I don't think it was like you know it all. I think it was just you really did think that you had the solution, whatever that was. And there was like almost no talking you out of that solution.
Yeah.
Like even if, for example, even if I thought I had a better solution, you would exhaust me just arguing it. So I would just like give up. Like, whatever, just do whatever you want. Like, because you just were so certain of whatever your solution was, and that it was like impossible to change your mind unless you put up like you came up with a real good defense and like had a debate about it.
Yeah.
And I just was not into that.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say that that's still part of my personality.
Yeah, but it's less harsh than it used to be,
but it's not like in the same like arrogance of like that. I guess that's what it'd be, is like it was all like wrapped up in arrogance as well. So. But like now it would kind of be very similar, that if I have the solution and you come up with a solution and I recognize it's better immediately, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, you back down.
If I don't really recognize that it is a better solution, but so I will challenge it. And then if you counter, like, and you counter that and you say like, no, this is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And like, so because the core of my personality is to be a challenger, and I challenge the things so that they will be better. I want to find its character flaw. I don't, there's that, I don't know, anyways.
Inertia.
And so there is like the vital flaw, like in whatever, and I want to find it early so we don't waste our time.
Totally, which is understandable. But I do think you have more wisdom in knowing when to fight that and when to not. Yeah. And I think you can admit more quickly now. Yeah. What is a better solution?
Yeah. And so just
like you don't make people fight to the death anymore. It's just, fight.
Yeah. And it's also just way less often, like there's just like I recognize how much I don't know.
Right.
And so that makes me basically a better person.
Yeah. I mean, wisdom is knowing how much you don't know.
Yeah. Ultimately, that's what it is like the wiser you become, the more you realize that you don't know. Even about things that you truly thought that you very much knew.
Yeah.
With the wiser you become, you realize I only know my perspective of that thing.
Yes. And I think it's also the more you understand it's like picking your battles and when to speak out and when to stay silent and all of that stuff. Like, you may feel like you have the right answer, but right isn't always wise. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like you've learned that as well. Like, know now more like, oh, I don't have to fight every battle to the death. It's just like the important ones,
So moving on to number 4, vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. Yeah. I would say that is something that I am continually learning, and is something that I learned years ago to not be like scared of vulnerability and to seek out vulnerability, because ultimately being vulnerable makes me a stronger person. Mm-hmm. But then even if you've listened to last week's episode, we even had a long conversation about what does it even mean to be vulnerable. And that's something that I'm still on a journey of learning. And I don't know if I've necessarily learned yet of what it actually 100% means for me to be vulnerable.
Right.
But I do recognize that I not only need it, but I want it. Mm-hmm. And to kind of go a little bit deeper into what the conversation we had last week was, we were talking about what is the difference between transparency and vulnerability. And we had a long conversation about that specific thing. And one of our friends who listens to the show got a really good picture of a metaphor that gave me, I guess, a little bit of just a deeper picture of,
you could put
maybe the difference between transparency and vulnerability. And I really like it, so I wanted to share it. In that she said that bulletproof glass is transparent, but it is not vulnerable. Yeah. Nothing can actually get through it or penetrate it or actually access what is on the other side of the bulletproof glass, even though it is fully transparent. Mm-hmm. Versus something like a window or a door that can be opened and can be transparent, but also can be accessed to. Mm-hmm. You can step through it. You can crawl through it. You can actually make it to the other side. And that is a picture of vulnerability and what the difference would be between transparency and vulnerability. Yeah. And I think that is a great visual of that. And something I'm still learning, and I still don't know what window or door I need to create in order to fully step into.
Because you are very transparent. But I think vulnerability is a lot more difficult to pinpoint for you.
Yes. Yeah. Number 5, everything I was taught is not true.
Yeah. I feel like this is most of adulthood is unlearning the things that you learned when you were a kid, like in most circumstances, like, human beings aren't perfect. And so you learn like family patterns or whatever. In the church, you learn things. Mm-hmm. And like, I feel like adulthood is unlearning all of those things that you did learn.
Yeah. And one of my favorite jokes about questioning the things that you were taught as a kid is the metaphor of cutting the ends off the ham. This woman, she got married, and her first Thanksgiving came around, and she was cooking a Thanksgiving dinner for her and her husband. And she cut the 2 ends off of the ham and then was putting it in the oven. And her husband was like, "Why are you cutting the ends off the ham?" And she's like, "That's what you're supposed to do. You do that before you put it in the oven." And he's like, "I've never seen that ever before." And so she was like, "Well, that's what my mom always did." And so she called her mom and she asked her like, hey, why do you cut the ends off the ham, before you put it in the oven? And she's like, I don't know. That's just what my mom always did. So then she calls her grandma and she's like, hey, grandma, why do you cut the ends off your ham, before you put it in? And her grandma says, well, I just never had a pan big enough for the ham, so I just cut the ends off so it would fit. And it's like, that's like the perfect example of things that generational, like even of things that you're just taught and learn and if you never question it, you end up just cutting the ends off a ham, and for no reason. But I wrote that more so, I think, because of my I would say American religious upbringing, and learning as an adult that a lot of the adults in my life were wrong. That they were doing their best. They weren't purposefully
well-intentioned.
Yeah, they were well-intentioned, but maybe the way that they were taught was wrong, and then they passed that down to me. And as I question those things, and as I really seek out knowledge for myself and seek out who God is and not who, religion is, I find that my answers are different and what I feel like aligns more with the character of God than what I was taught.
Yeah.
The next one is number 6. Freedom is bought through surrender, not war.
Okay.
And so I'm not talking about America. I'm talking about in personal life. That freedom is bought through surrendering yourself, not through fighting, not through pushing and crawling your way through things. It is truly, freedom truly comes through, paradoxically, through surrendering yourself over to something greater than yourself, another person, whatever it is. Like if you're truly going to be free.
Letting go of certain ideals.
Right. Letting go. Again, we've had an entire podcast conversation about that as well. And we have also a lot more to get through. So that is freedom is bought through surrender, not war. Number 7 is even strong opinions can change and will change. So this was something I have learned in my 30 years of life, that I have gone through so many very, very strong phases in my life.
You are very opinionated. Yeah.
But even in just like the things that I believe, the things that I love, the things that I like, everything that I want to be in life has changed so much. Just feeling like going through like 3 or 4 years of like being deep into something. And like
even something really small, like there were several years in a row that you wore a button up and bow tie.
Yes.
Every single day.
Every day of my life.
Every day for like 3 years.
I wore
you were like
a dress shirt and bow tie.
Adamant about it. You can't even be bothered to do that for a special event now. You're like, nobody's going to tell me to dress up.
Yeah, exactly. Like in musical taste and like being deep into a musical taste and thinking that it's the best music in the world and nothing can beat it ever. I will never change. And then like going just a few years later and I'm literal opposite music and like don't even care to listen to anything that I ever listened to before. And so just I have learned to never say never. Like that should probably be what it's called.
Justin Bieber is correct.
Yes, I should. That's probably what it should actually say is never say never, because just because I have changed so much in my life, and I even whenever I talk in conversation to people and I'm talking about a strong feeling I have, I always end up talking about but that's just how I feel right now. Yeah. Like I've learned too much in my life to say that this is forever.
Yeah, you're definitely just as opinionated as you've always been. But you're not too.
But I know that it's I hold my strong opinions loosely, like we talked about in another episode. Like
with
basically
Michelle.
all of these
these are all podcast episodes.
Just each one of these is a different title of a podcast that we've already done. But we've had these conversations before.
Yeah. It's
but just
true.
I hold my strong opinions loosely because I've had so many strong opinions in my life that are 100% different than what my opinions are now.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't think it's on the list here, but along with this is that just knowing that people change, allowing people the space to change, allowing myself the space to change. Just because I think and do something now doesn't mean that's what I'm going to think and do later. And same thing with anybody else in my life or anybody else that I am a part of. It's like, okay, that's the way they feel right now.
Yeah.
Or that's the way they felt then.
Right. Which I think is the most important. We have a really hard time understanding that somebody is different than the person they were when we met them, you know?
And as I've been very transparent in the art that I'm creating, I almost am like, a lot of my art that I've made over the last 2 years is the art of transparency. And so, I was about to say, there's going to come a time when there's a lot of things, or there is something that I have had strong opinions about in a video or a podcast that people are going to be like, but you used to say that. And it's like, yeah, I changed.
Well, but
the thing is it's only been not even 2 years yet, and I already have things like that. If you go to, like, there are some earlier videos that, like, literally, you go, I listen to it, and I'm like, huh, that's funny. Like, I don't think that anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's like Zadie Smith. Again, I think we talked about this
twice. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we talked about it twice.
But she has a quote about the social internet in particular, but she says, I reserve my right to be wrong. Yeah. And it's all about that. It's the idea that, like, I'm going to say something today that I don't mean in 2 years. And, like, that's fine because we're all human beings on a journey. So,
number 8 is your environment dictates your outcome more than your effort.
Yeah. I think an environment is really important, something we don't pay attention to enough.
Effort matters.
100%.
But there is something to be said about your environment and how much it truly affects the outcome of what you are doing and who you are becoming.
Yeah, I think that it plays more of a mental role than we assume it does. And so it's just like how they say, like, messy desk, messy mind, clean desk, clean mind, whatever. I think that is 100% true. Yeah. Like, and it's a mental thing more than anything else. And, like, the mental space that you clear up with creating an environment that works for you is so important to get things done and to feel good while doing it.
Right.
You can probably get things done, but, like, feel like trash afterwards, you know?
And even bigger than just a workspace, or even bigger than just, like, the micro level of that space. You have to recognize that people who grow up in a impoverished scenario, in an environment in which they are not truly allowed to thrive, versus people who live in a very privileged upbringing and are allowed to thrive to, like, even more to the best of their ability, can work and strive at the same level, but the person who is surrounded in the right environment for thriving is going to have a better outcome than somebody who's not. And so not allowing yourself to think that I have 100% made it here because of my effort.
100%.
And that your environment dictates a lot of it. And then also, I think there's that, and then there is just all the side of what you were saying, like the people you surround yourself with and everything that comes around with you and how you are, who you become, everything that the outcome of all of that is very, very much dictated by the environment in which you place yourself in. Number 9 is I naturally command a room, and that is a responsibility. So that is something that I have more recently, like, put terminology around. So I've always known that, if we're in a room of how many ever people, just whether it's like 5 or 15 or whatever, and we're all just talking, blah, 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 just hanging out. It's like, it's a party, whatever it is. I will begin to talk to a couple people about something, and then I will notice that literally everybody stopped talking and now they're listening to me. And that, I don't know what it is. Like, it's not something that I try to do. It's not like I feel like I need to be somebody who's in the room and can make, like, everybody listen to me. I am the person, the wisest man in the room. Like, nothing, like, I have no thoughts that have anything to do with that. It's just something about who.
Well, you're a strong personality. That's just the truth.
Whatever it is. All I know is that I've come to recognize that when I speak, people listen. And whenever I am, and because of that, I need to recognize that that comes with the responsibility. And in the fact that, like we've been talking about, my art is sharing process. My art is being transparent, that I can and do have very strong opinions, and or just the opinions that I have can come off very, very strong, or things that I am just processing through, I will tend to process in a strong way, in that I don't, it's kind of like I'm talking about this thing and I don't even know if I truly believe this yet, but I'm talking it through to make sure that I do. I'm challenging you and challenging myself at the same time through like strong, challenging,
I mean,
language.
This happened to us today. We got in an argument because you called the Lower East Side ugly, and I felt like that was a little harsh of a word to use. And so then we had like a 20-minute argument about what you actually meant by that.
And then finally at the end of it, I was like, okay, well, the architectural tone of the Lower East Side does not inspire me as much as the architectural tone as something like Park Avenue or whatever.
Downtown or whatever. Yeah, that was the whole thing. But it's, again, you were processing your feelings about it.
Yes.
And you used harsh language that I felt was inappropriate.
But really, to the point, and the thing that I've learned in learning is that because of that, I need to know that I have a responsibility, and I need to be careful that if I speak and people listen and I am sharing in my process, I need to be clear and upfront that this is something I am processing and not something that you should take away.
Right.
It's basically
right. Like, you shouldn't dilute your opinions by any means. I don't think you should back away from your opinions, because I mean, that's who you are.
Yeah.
But to be upfront about, like, I mean, this is what I think right now.
Yeah.
Is
it's mostly like, knowing that by sharing what I'm sharing, and if I, as I've recognized that people, tend to gravitate or to listen, that I don't want to lead somebody astray in what they should be doing for their own personal life.
Right.
By sharing something or saying something, whatever.
Very definitive.
Right. In definitive language, by saying like, this is the way it is. And then that person takes that away and like, whatever.
But I also think in that you should be careful not to lose your...
Right. It's a balance.
Your strong opinions, because I think that's what does make you.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
I think mostly it is, it's a piece of self-awareness of knowing the power of your language, the power of your words, and the power of everything and all of that, and knowing that you have a responsibility in that.
Right.
And not just flippantly wielding it.
Yeah.
Number 10, social value is different than value.
True.
So what that means is there are a lot of things that hold a lot of intrinsic social value, but not a lot of intrinsic value. So a prime example of this, if you are aware of the street brand Supreme is I think the dictionary definition of something holding social value, but very little value. The reason that people seek it out, the reason people stand in line for hours on end and the reason it resells for a significant amount of money is not because it holds any sort of intrinsic value. It is because it holds a lot of social value. Definitely. And the social value is that if I wear this, you will think that I am cool. If I wear this, I'm showing that I understand streetwear. I whatever it is, like whatever image. It's an image that you are trying to put out to the world, and mostly to your social circle, that there is an in-group and you are putting a piece of armor on to show that you can hang with the in-group.
Right.
And because just a t-shirt with a screen printed graphic on it is not worth waiting 3, 4, or 5 hours in line, whatever it is. Yeah. It's not worth the $200 that you're buying it in resale, because they have made a false scarcity to create the culture of which that you think that you have to stand in line.
Right. It tricks you into thinking that it's actually worth that.
Because it's not actually scarce. It's false scarcity.
Yeah.
Because they can print as many as they want. But to keep the social value high, which ultimately is better for their business, they create false scarcity. So anyways, going on about Supreme specifically, but that concept of social value is in everything.
Yes.
That why are you truly buying that car? Why are you truly doing, wearing that thing? Why are you truly, whatever it is? Just like I have found in my life that I like to break that stuff down and figure out my ultimate why to make sure that why is not for social value.
Yeah, like the motive should be for nothing but you,
but it's actual
as
value.
A person.
Right.
Yeah.
It's actual
It's
value.
not about not wearing Supreme. It's about understanding why you're even feeling like you should wear Supreme.
Right.
Yeah,
totally. And knowing that if, on the resale market, it's a $200, that why do I feel this urge or this need or whatever to spend this $200?
Yeah.
To buy this thing that is, was made for $5 maybe.
Yeah.
Or sold retail for $25, $35, $45.
Right.
And is now being resold at $200. Why? In what way is it a smart decision for me to do that?
Right. It all comes down to motives.
It all comes down to that. And now this gets into not necessarily what I've learned, but more so into my opinion. And that my opinion is that it is never worth it.
Right. We've had extensive conversations about this.
Because, I don't see how... Basically, it's more so I don't see how I could spend that much money just because I loved it so much that I felt it was worth that money.
Yeah, this is one of your very strong opinions.
Yes. Anyways, don't need to get on a soapbox, as we have plenty more life lessons to learn, which is another one of my life lessons. Not every soapbox is worth dying on. Number 11. Oh, wow. This is apropos. Number 11. Tone and words are different. Wow. And often tone is more important.
I think I have taught you this one, because I don't even know how many arguments we've had where you end up saying something like, I'm not yelling at you, or I'm not saying that, or whatever. And I look at you and I say, tone means everything.
Yeah, there's been a few times, I don't know, probably not that many times, but there's just been a few times that burn in my memory where you're like, you're screaming at me. And I'm like, I never even raised my voice.
And I just say, tone. Your tone.
My tone is screaming at you.
Yeah. Tone is everything. It's also why you can't understand what a person is saying over text message.
Right.
You have no idea if they're actually angry, or if when they text back and they just say sure, period. Are they being passive aggressive, or are they actually just sure?
Right. And, I guess if we get into the dynamics of that, of just texting, email, that type of stuff is actually a terrible way to communicate feelings. It's only a way, it's a great way to communicate facts.
Yes.
And it's a great way to communicate plans, which I guess are facts. So if we bring it all down to facts and feelings, text conversations in whatever form are great for sharing facts, terrible for sharing feelings.
Right. It's why I send smiley faces with pretty much every single text message. I'm like, here's the thing, I'm happy about it.
Yeah. And that's I mean, that's true. Like we have to use like different emojis and different ways of your face says a lot.
Yes. Well, don't they say like, what is it? 80,
some
70
sort of,
or 80%?
A great percentage of your communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
And whenever your communication on, anyways, but that's not really what I've.
No, we're talking about.
My life lesson is about in communication, not in the words of.
Yeah. I mean, words
not
matter.
in electronic communication, in actual real life, face-to-face communication.
Yeah.
Is that I have a resting bitch voice.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
In my tone, of even in the words, if you just listened to the words, then I am encouraging you. I am, whatever. But I am tone deaf in some ways that I don't actually hear myself. And I don't understand why you are getting upset about me saying something nice to you. You know what I mean? Like it's. And so just I have learned the lesson that tone is different than words.
Right.
And that tone is generally sometimes, if not all the time, more important than words. Yet I'm still learning how to control that.
Or even recognize it sometimes, I feel like.
Well, yeah, I ultimately recognize it, but I don't know how to control it yet.
Oh, okay.
Like all the time. Like I can't unconsciously control it. It's not something that is intrinsic yet.
Right, like you haven't trained yourself enough to where it's natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Tone is important.
Number 12. I've never met a wise person who doesn't read.
I'm all about reading, so.
I think that when we first got married, 18 to 20, I was in this, I was very stupid, and I did not read books, and I proudly would verbalize how much I didn't read, and I would, make these self-praising statements of, how little I actually read, and, basically how all
Which
of
is
that.
weird in itself.
I mean, I don't know if it was, a defense mechanism at that time or, or
what it was.
But I very much was proud, that I didn't read. Haha.
Which is annoying.
Right. And then as I got older and we would, like I mentioned, I was on staff at a church, and so we would do a lot of personal growth things, and we would read books together to learn. And I was always so reluctant to read the book because it was I didn't have a reading process. I'm a slow reader, and it wasn't something I ever put true value in my life. But as I have gotten older, as I have met more people, as I have studied more people, the wisest people in the world, the wisest people I have met, all are avid readers.
Right.
And so, looking at that example of other people in my life, I ultimately want to be wise. I ultimately want to act in wisdom. And so, if I'm going to emulate wisdom, then I need to read. So I began to read more and more as I've gotten older, to the point now where I feel that I want to create much more margin in my life for the act of reading, and realizing that no wise person has ever said, I watch X number of hours of TV every day.
Right.
And that's how I, gained my wisdom.
Right.
That is the opposite. And no wise person has ever said, oh yeah, I gained my wisdom through scrolling social media X number of hours a day. Never. It is always, through obviously experience, through travel, and through reading. So number 13, we've kind of touched on this previously, but I'm privileged and I can't escape it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's growing up, you don't realize your privilege,
Yeah.
until you become an adult after 25 sometime. You're like, oh, yeah.
Yep.
I had it pretty easy.
Yes. But then also I think for me, I never thought that being a white person had an effect on my life or outcome. I never really said, oh yeah, I had it easier in life because I'm white. Also, I never thought that being a man was also in that same vein. And then to multiply that and be a white man, then to multiply that and that I am a white straight man.
Right.
Then to multiply that and that I'm a white straight Christian man in America. I am ultimately in the most privileged group in this country, in that there is no adversity to anything that I am.
Right.
No, I am in no way a minority in, anything in my life experience. I am in no way, have ever been oppressed in anything that I am. And so just recognizing that I am very privileged.
Yeah.
And knowing that as I recognize it, knowing that I can't escape, from that privilege, but I need to know and I need to act upon the fact that I am in whatever ways that is.
Yeah.
And knowing that others can benefit from my privilege, and I have a platform to fight for those that are being oppressed. I am in the position of which I need to reach across and actually pull people over and help in those ways, because they are not being given a fair shot. They are not being given the privilege of which I am operating in. Right. And so
it's learning compassion.
Right. Yeah. And knowing that, I think that in whatever ways, it's just recognizing that I'm able to sit here right now. I'm able to live in New York City. I'm able to do all of the things that have led me to this point, ultimately can be funneled through that I have lived a life of privilege. And again, there's a responsibility in that. Yeah. Number 14, hurt people.
That's true.
That is something that I have recognized and learned and been taught, I guess, over the years, and just knowing. And this kind of comes back to it. This is maybe a sub lesson in empathy.
Yeah, I was going to say that it kind of teaches you not to excuse somebody else's behavior, but to find grace in the situation, which would be like empathy,
Right. And just, I think we all need to recognize that the people, I guess the majority of people who spit out hate and hurt people and truly like they seek out and they're just hateful. Those people are ultimately acting out in that way because they have been hurt themselves or are currently being hurt themselves. Right. And so they can be taking that and flipping it, and they feel so powerless in their own situation and in their own life that they need to assert power and hate over others in order for them to feel any semblance of togetherness and control or whatever. And so,
or they could just be doing it so unconsciously, like they just don't even recognize.
If you're in that spot, I'm not saying they recognize that's why they are doing it. I think that those of us that are not in that spot and we are being affected by hateful people, that it is good to know that their hate is probably coming from a place of hurt, and that whenever they are hating, a lot of times, if you can, and I know this is very, 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 very hard, lean in to those people and figure out what is on the other side of that ultimately they are just a broken person who needs love. And I think that the reason I hurt people, the reason that is on the list is just recognizing and knowing that empathy.
Yeah. I think also stopping the cycle, right? You don't jab back at them or jab at somebody else because of what they did to you, you know?
Yeah.
You can stop the cycle.
Right. And I think that where I lost my words a second ago, and I think that the hurt people, the reason that's on the list is because of just recognizing that the things that they are doing are not personal to me.
Right.
That even if I choose not to lean in because, you know, so you can't, there's only so much time in the world.
Yeah.
And I can't lean into every single person who's hateful.
Only so much you can accomplish in this certain scenario.
But it's just recognizing that they are probably hurting you because they are broken. And it's nothing personal, has nothing to do with you. Which brings us to number 15, and that is negativity is toxic and infectious. Mm-hmm. I think this is a big lesson I learned in my early 20s, and I have many examples of this throughout my 20s, in the fact that negative people are toxic and should be avoided at all cost. And 2, that if you don't protect yourself, you will be infected with their negativity, and it's so easy to be infected. If you're around it for very long at all, it's much easier to, I think maybe we all tend to have this baseline of negativity that we can jump into as a place of mutual understanding. Like we can have a common enemy,
especially in a workplace scenario.
Yeah, in a lot of workplace,
that's pretty easy to relate to coworkers, to be able to relate to coworkers. It's like, oh, you don't like them either? Let's talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And in those things, in that gossip, that negativity, that just tearing other people down, it's so easy to join in with that and bond over your mutual negativity that you may not even have felt negative. You may not have even felt that before, but because they are in this state, this emotional state of bringing this negativity, you can actually bond with them by bringing that negativity on yourself. But negativity only breeds more negativity, and you leave that situation with those dark emotions with you, and you take that to your next conversation, your next location, and into your other relationships. And that's why negativity is toxic, and it can easily spread through a community if it is not snuffed out.
Totally. It's also just an unfortunate foundation to build any relationship on.
Yes.
It's not going to last at all. It's going to crumble pretty quick. And also, if somebody's talking negatively about somebody else, who's to say they won't do it about you too? So
I would say that it's 100% chance.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think avoiding. And there's a difference between somebody having a bad day and somebody being a negative person. Yeah. FYI, let's just throw that out there. Everyone has those days. That is just well, I wish I had acted better. You know, that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
It's the toxic negativity, and you can recognize it.
Yeah. There's just some people that ultimately operate in negativity. And this goes into part of this life lesson is that you become the people who you hang out with.
Yeah. And also, I think along the same lines, it really taught us how to set boundaries.
Yes.
That we had never really had to do before.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there are some relationships that are ultimately negative that you can't get away from. Through in the way that there is some sort of obligation there's some sort of familial tie, whatever it is.
Or workplace.
Workplace, whatever.
All kinds of things.
All kinds of things that you can't truly get away. You can't just run and never see that person again. But you can set boundaries, and you can set the tone, and you can be the person that you can say, okay, I recognize that this is a negative, toxic relationship, but I can't escape it. And so whenever I am around it, I need to recognize that whenever this thing starts, whenever the conversation turns, you can be the one to stop it. You can change it. You can walk away. All of these different things, because ultimately there is no for me, I guess I'm giving a lot. This is my life lesson. That ultimately for me, there's no place in my life for negativity.
Yeah. Which I think you also learn as you get older, like what is actually like worth your time as far as like what should you be investing in.
Yeah.
And like negative people is just not one of those.
Right.
Like you said, it may be something that, I mean, people are people. So it's not like you're going to escape negativity altogether. But learning to set the boundaries of what negativity is and how much you allow is so important and like hugely life-changing.
Yep.
And you only have time for so many relationships, so they might as well be the good ones.
Yep. And I think that is one of those things that is one of those pillar life lessons that if you don't already know, or if you've forgotten, that you become who you hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look around and the people that you spend the most time with are not ultimately who you want to be,
right,
then you need to change your environment, because ultimately your environment dictates your outcome.
Right.
And so surrounding yourself with the right people is so important.
Mm-hmm. I think you can also apply that to a workplace situation. If your workplace is toxic,
Mm-hmm.
you should, consider finding a different job. And I know that sounds like that can be overwhelming and exhausting, but the workplace environment is not going to change.
Right.
Like if they've set the tone for toxicity and negativity and like just all of that stuff, like it's not going to change, and you shouldn't endure it.
Yeah.
There are better jobs out there.
Right.
And there are better people to work for.
And in that, let's say, you've worked up to this thing.
Yeah.
And like you're making, more money now,
right.
and you have this position, but ultimately really just thinking about it, asking yourself the questions, is it worth it?
Yeah.
It is a little bit more money, but I am miserable.
Right.
I hate coming to work every day. I leave stressed out. I can't even have fun at home because I'm so stressed and thinking
right.
about everything that
you're having to like detox from
and taking home from this.
Yeah.
How much money is that actually worth?
Right.
If you were to go get a completely different job, and maybe it is a lower paying job,
right,
but you actually enjoy yourself and there is ultimate like growth and happiness every day, and you get to come home and feel free, how much is that actually worth?
Yeah, a whole freaking lot, actually.
And I would say that if I added another life lesson, like that is worth more than money. Like, in I have done things, I've worked and I've like created businesses and I've like strived for more money and that type of thing. But
I mean, I feel like I am even like a prime example of that. I did work full time
mm-hmm.
at a job, and it was not great. The environment was less than ideal,
Yeah.
And eventually it killed me, so I left. Had to. I had no other option. Never looked back.
Yep.
Make significantly less money. Like significantly less money. But, I can smile.
Yeah.
So.
But it's ultimately, you weighed the cost of your stress and your happiness,
mm-hmm.
and you made the choice that it's worth the cost.
Absolutely, it was worth the cost.
And every season is different. In some seasons you can't, some seasons you can. Ultimately, though, I think that more people can than think they can't.
Yes, because you get into a rhythm and a routine, and it's comfortable, and it's nice making a mm-hmm. certain amount of dollars every month, and like not having to worry about it and whatever.
And you've already adjusted your lifestyle to the new income, which means that if you went to a different income, you'd have to adjust your lifestyle in other ways. But then ultimately, your mental well-being and your quality of life, this is my life lesson, is my mental well-being and my quality of life is more important to me than the lifestyle of which money could bring me.
Yeah.
That would be, I guess, wrapped up at the end of negativity is toxic and infectious.
Yeah.
So that is number 15. That is halfway through. And so we do have 15 more, but what we're going to do is actually break this up into 2 podcasts. And so next week, come back for lessons 16 through 30 of my life.
Yeah.
And we'll keep talking about this, but don't want to make this a 2-hour show. So we're going to end it here. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for joining me on this journey. For being a part of the last, I guess the podcast now has been a part of the last year of my 30-year journey. We're actually coming up on 1 year of podcasting.
It's wild.
At the, I think it's the middle or end of March.
I think it's the end of March.
Yeah. So, thank you guys for being here. And also thank you so much to all of our patrons over at Jensen AV Club, all of the members of the Jensen AV Club. If you want to help support what we are doing, support us and creating this art and keeping consumerism out of art, head over to jensenav.club, and every single tier makes a difference.
Yes.
And if you can't, or if you don't want to contribute financially, just listening to me right now makes a difference. And liking, sharing, leaving a review on iTunes, all of that is a huge help and a major contributor to, I guess, the business success of the podcast.
Discoverability.
Yes. So thank you guys for that. Join us next week as we will continue on the 30 things I have learned in my 30 years.
Bye.